Om Ajnana Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditamscha He Krishna Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Jetam Suruto Pangor Mama Mandir Mate Giti Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madanam Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Shrimad Ratna Gara Simhasanasto Shrimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prishtali Vi Sevyamano Smarani Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsi Vatatarastitaha Karshan Venus Saner Gopi Gopinata Shriyastana Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtadhishatayine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. So thank you very much, Mataji, for the introduction. To reiterate, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 14th chapter, verses 12 to 19. I will begin with verse 12. Then the devotees can read the intervening, and then I'll pick up again to read the Sanskrit and the English of text 19. I think we'll just, for the sake of time, we'll just focus on the English until we get to text 19. So text 12. Just see, O Bhim, how the she-jackal cries at the rising sun and vomits fire, and how the dog barks at me fearlessly.
Text 13. O Bhimasena, tiger amongst men, now useful animals like cows are passing me on my left side, and lower animals like the asses are circumventing me. My horses appear to weep upon seeing me. Hare Krishna, Hare Govind Prabhu, kindly take over. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Text 14, 15. Are you able to hear Hare Govind Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Please read the English translation of text 14 and 15.
Just see that this pigeon is like a messenger of death. The shrieks of the owls and their rival crows make my heart tremble. It appears that they want to make a void of the whole universe. Text 15. Just see how the smoke encircles the sky. It appears that the earth and mountains are throbbing. Just hear the cloudless thunder and see the bolts from the blue. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, continue. Prashanta Atmadas Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. 16. The wind blows violently, blasting dust everywhere and creating darkness. Clouds are raining everywhere with bloody disasters. Text 17. The rays of the sun are declining. and the stars appear to be fighting amongst themselves. Confused living entities appear to be ablaze and weeping.
Text 18. River tributaries, ponds, reservoirs, and the mind are all perturbed. Butter no longer ignites fire. What is this extraordinary time? What is going to happen? Hare Krishna Prabhu, over to you for text 19.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chetam Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Uderet. Nashta Preshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya. Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtaki. Na pibanti stanam vatsa na dhuyanti chamataraha. Rudanti ashru mukha gavo na rishyanti rishabha vraje. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The calves do not suck the teats of the cows, nor do the cows give milk. They are standing, crying, tears in their eyes, and the bulls take no pleasure in the pasturing grounds. So, as we have no purport, I will move directly into the class. It seems here that there's actually an extended period of this chapter where Srila Prabhupada hasn't provided a purport. But I think I would like to begin by talking, and generally people who've attended my classes know that I always like to give some context before we begin the class. And actually, I generally start my Srimad Bhagavatam classes by quoting the Padma Purana. The Padma Purana, there's a famous passage in the Padma Purana which is actually describing the 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it goes as follows. Pado yadiyo pratama dvityo tritaya turyo katito yaduru istata panchama eva shashto pujantaram dhor yugalam tatanyo kantastura jannavamo yadiyo makara vindham dashama prafullam ekadasho yasya lalata patam shiropi tu dwadasha eva bhati tam adi devam karuna nidhanam tamala varnam suhitavataram apara sangsara samudra setum bhajamahe bhagavata swarupam. Bhajamahe bhagavata swarupam. So what the Bhagavatam, the Padma Purana is actually saying about the Bhagavatam is that the 12 cantos of the Bhagavatam actually represent Sri Krishna's swarupam, his form, Bhagavat swarupam. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is no ordinary literature. No part of the Srimad Bhagavatam is an ordinary or mundane verse. Some commentators outside of the Vaishnava Sampradayas have often mentioned that the first and second cantos are not so important because Shukadev Goswami hasn't spoken yet. We've only met Shuta Goswami, and actually only towards the end of the second canto, Shukadev Goswami speaks. And sometimes, devotees, and certainly when I first read Bhagavatam, often when we start, we feel, wow, 18,000 shlokas, and I'm only at verse 1. So let me rush through first canto, second canto. Let me get to the good stuff. Let me get to Rishabdev. Let me get to Gardama Muni and Kapil Dev. Let me get to Nrsinga Dev. Let's rush through because then we feel like we've achieved something. However, what Padma Purana is saying is that the first and second cantos are actually non-different from the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Would we, if we saw Sri Krishna's lotus feet, which Haridas Thakur grasped to his chest when he was leaving the planet, that the gopis desire to have on their chest, that is the shelter even of Bali Maharaj when Vamandev placed it, would we rush past those feet and say, no, we want to see something better? Actually, we have to do due service to the first canto and second canto, which are the lotus feet of the Lord. And in fact, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he was holding of Rajmandal Parikram in the earliest 20th century, and they were at Radhakund, do you know what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed all of his disciples to lecture on for 28 days? It was the first verse of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Not some esoteric, literature by the Goswami, the first verse of the first canto. In fact, Srila Prabhupada even said when he came from India to the West, and all he was carrying was the first canto. He said, everything you need to go back to Godhead is within this first canto. Everything that you need is within this first canto. So actually, greater evidence of how important this first canto is also given by our Shiromani Shastri, Srila Jiva Goswami. Of course, all 6 of the Goswamis were incredible authors. But Srila Jiva Goswami, he wrote the, what was it? Is it the Krama Sandarbha, which was his commentary. And mind you, Jiva Goswami is considered the greatest luminary of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he actually says, and many of you may or you may not know this, but there are actually 10 topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the second canto, 10th chapter, I can't remember which way, it might be the first verse. And the verse goes, Atra sargo visargascha, stanam poshanam uttaya, manvantareshana nukata, nirodha muktir ashraya. So 10 topics Shukadev Goswami is giving of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So 10 topics are covered. So these 10 topics are sarga. Sarga means creation. Visarga, sub-creation. Stanam, the planetary systems. Porshanam, the Lord's protection. Uttaya, the creative impetus. Manvantara, the changes of the manus. Ishu Anukata, the science of Krishna. Nirodha, going back to Godhead. Mukti, liberation. And then finally, Ashrayaha. Ashrayaha. This is the 10th topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada interprets this term, Ashrayaha, this 10th topic of the Bhagavatam, as samam bonam. So confusingly, Srila Prabhupada takes a Sanskrit word and then translates it into Latin. So if you don't know Sanskrit or Latin, it can be difficult to understand.
Hare Krishna, are you able to hear Prabhuji, or is it my internet? I'm sorry to interrupt. Hare Krishna, are you able?
I think.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji, I think it's Prabhu's internet, I think.
Okay.
He has been logged out now, I think.
He's been logged in. He's logged in now.
Hare Krishna.
I think his connection screen, even though he was muted, but now he's gone completely.
Yes.
Okay. We can use this time to introduce Prabhuji in his absentia for the time being, because we want to hear more about what he wants to say. I'm sure he'll join in. His Mataji was also there, and I'd like to see if she's there as well. No, I think she's logged out as well.
No, I'm there. I did log out briefly. Somebody wanted guidance how to get in, but I'm back again.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Draupadi Mataji, is Prabhuji able to join in? Draupadi Mataji? Draupadi Maharani Mataji? Hare Krishna. Okay, So let me introduce Prabhuji. I'm sure he'll join back.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I think we just lost connection.
Hare
but it
Krishna,
should,
Mataji.
should be running again.
So I've now dialed in from my phone. So I hope that's visible. My apologies. I'm not sure what happened there. I think Draupadi Maharani's mentioned that maybe we lost internet connection.
Yes.
So
Prabhuji.
So I'm not sure how much of the end or where you got until or where I was cut off, but I was saying that actually all of these topics are given everywhere, and even in the first canto, the most elevated, the most complete topic of the Bhagavatam, Ashraya, which often can be interpreted as shelter, but Srila Prabhupada specifically, when talking about the 10 topics, refers to it as the summum bonum. Jiva Goswami says this topic especially is found within the first canto. So it's a very important canto. And actually this chapter, the 14th chapter, the disappearance of Sri Krishna, really you can start to see how the summum bonum is being incorporated into this canto via this chapter. If we see that summum bonum, so to know Krishna, we need to see a great devotee of Krishna. And there is no greater devotee than Srimati Radharani. Aradhate, Aradhana. Aradhana means the worship of the Supreme Lord. So Srimati Radharani, by name and by nature, is the personification of bhakti. And Srimati Radharani comes in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna experiencing the Mahabhav of Srimati Radharani. And what is the nature of Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna? It's specifically exhibited in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That love is expressed how? Through Vipralamba. Those highest meditations, those highest ecstasies, is not when Krishna and Radharani are together, but rather when Radharani is feeling separation from Krishna. Vipralamba Bhav. When the Lord is in Gambhira, you can see that deep separation. At night, he's totally inconsolable, and his servants, Govinda and Nishan, have to be there to constantly monitor the Lord. Sometimes he goes into ecstasy and he thinks the ocean is the Yamuna, and he dives in, even when there are huge waves, and they're very worried about Mahaprabhu. He's so absorbed. You know, if you ask any parent, they're very happy when their children are there. But when their children are away in somewhere foreign, then their mind is fully preoccupied. Oh, are they okay? Are they worried? Are they eating well? So that separation creates an anxiety, which actually creates even higher absorption. We only need to see also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Ishtadev. He moves to Jagannath Puri. Why? Because Jagannath
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, I think we've lost Prabhuji again. He'll join
many,
back.
Hare Krishna. Are we dropping out again?
Yes, but now we've got you back. You will
Is that
talk
back?
about Jagannath Puri. Hare Krishna.
Are we? Oh, is that clear now, Mataji?
Yes, you are back, Prabhuji.
So, I was saying Maya Sakaya. Srila Prabhupada would often say that to the degree that we depend on man-made inventions, to that degree we will become frustrated. So I'm depending on my Wi-Fi, and it's clearly frustrating me today. So I was saying that, yes, Jagannath is the embodiment of this Vipralamba path. And actually this chapter is also demonstrating the deep Vipralamba that the Pandavas, and specifically Arjun, but also Yudhishthir, will feel in separation from Krishna. But in one sense, it's a separation, and in one sense, it is the most bittersweet union. So this really shows the Ashraya. So it's a very important chapter. It's a very important chapter within a very important canto. So we can see here, if we go back to review some of the verses, that there are many ill omens. I think in the fourth verse, Yudhishthira Maharaj is mentioning to be specifically ill omens. So omens, or the reading of ill omens, was actually a technique known as nimitta gyan. Nimitta gyan. Nimitta gyan means the ability to be able to understand impending activities, impending events which are due to occur on this planet. Some of you may or may not know, Krishna actually went to Avanti for his schooling, Avantipur, Avantika, which is now modern day Ujjain. And his guru, when he was learning, was Sandipani Muni. Now, obviously, Krishna is Nandanandana eternally, but in Bhoma Leela, he's born as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. He's actually a prince. But he grows up from infancy, he's tending the cows, he's in the river Yamuna, he's wrestling, he's living the life of a Vaishya. And some commentators say not only is Krishna a Vaishya, but actually cowherds and shepherds are considered the least sophisticated of the Vaishyas, because they have no permanent place of residence. You know, they're roaming in the field. It's not like they're high-class jewelers doing things for the king and queens who are getting a first-class education. They're nomadic, you know. Even the gopis are saying, we're just very simple village girls. So there was no formal structure of education. And one day, the cowherd men say, there are too many demons, Gokul Mahavan. We must leave, and we go to Nandagal. So they leave. Only a nomadic community can just leave. It had to change to first of all to right move or whatever, they could sell our properties and go. But no, these were a very nomadic shepherd community. So when Krishna finally is reunited with Vasudeva and Devaki in Mathura, they say, we're so happy to have you home, but you're 16 now and you've had no formal education. We must rectify this. So the most obvious choice for education for Krishna would be to send Krishna to Banaras, Varanasi, or Kashi. But if people know the geography of northern India, you have Mathura, you have Kashi, and then after Kashi, you have Magadh, which is modern day Bihar. And the issue with sending Krishna to Kashi for education is that Jarasandh, who was the father-in-law of Kans, was the king of Magadh. And so Vasudeva said, we can't send Krishna there. It's too dangerous. You know, Jarasandh could attack at any time to Kashi. It's very close. We must find somewhere else. So instead they say, well, there is one great sage from Kashi who has now made his gurukul in Avantipur, Avantika, modern day Ujjain. Sandipani Muni, he comes in very high regard. We should send Krishna and Balaram there for their education. So Krishna and Balaram are sent to Avantika, and there are, in traditional classical gurukul, and Srila Prabhupada has mentioned this on many occasions, there are two limbs of traditional gurukul. One is known as Chatudashma Vidya. Chatudashma, Chatu means 4, Dashma means 10. Vidya, so 10 4 or 4 10 means 14 Vidyas. So there's 14 disciplines of knowledge. And then there's Chatu Shashti Kala. Chatu means 4, Shashti in Sanskrit means 60. Kala means, well, loosely speaking, it means sciences and arts. So 64 arts and 14 limbs of knowledge. And Krishna learned knowledge 64 days. What would take most people 15, 18, 20, 24 years, up to 25 to learn, Krishna learned 64 arts in 64 days. And the 49th of, in fact, actually, I have a book here, which I got the last time I was in Ujjain, which is Sarvang. Oh, you probably can't see that. But anyway, it explains these 64 art forms that Krishna learned. Of those 64 arts, the 49th is known as Nimitta Gyan. Nimitta Gyan. Nimitta means sign, omen, symbol. And gyan means understanding. So it is effectively your ability to understand signs within the material nature. Srila Prabhupada mentions the art of foretelling omens in Krishna book, Kanar Vachan. There was a wife or a daughter of a great astrologer. His name was Varaha Mihira. And he was a great astrologer. And Kana, she was able to distill all of his complex Jyotish into a digestible, not storybook form, but into kind of common vernacular. Much like Narottam Das Thakur, he would compose beautiful Vaishnava bhajans, but in language the ordinary man could understand. Very simple Bengali in comparison to the deep Sanskrit of the six Goswamis. So Srila Prabhupada has mentioned this Kanar Vachan as one form of Nimitta Gyan. Srila Prabhupada even mentioned that, and I'll read it verbatim, this is in the Krishna book. Krishna and Balaram then learned the art of foretelling events by seeing signs. In a book called Kanar Vachan, the various types of signs and omens are described. If when one is going out, one sees someone with a bucket full of water, this is a very good sign. But if one sees someone with an empty bucket, it is not a good sign. Similarly, if one sees a cow being milked alongside a calf, it is a good sign. The result of understanding these signs is that one can foretell events, and Krishna and Balaram learned the science. So that's from Krishna book. So this is the 49th out of the 64 arts. Now, we can see, Srila Prabhupada has mentioned that if we see a calf, a cow being milked and a calf nearby, this is wonderful. But yet, if we look at this verse, the calves do not suck the teats of the cows, nor do the cows give milk. So we can see here, even with Srila Prabhupada's explanation, this is a very inauspicious sign. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, clearly, having been trained in this art, can immediately recognize, using this Nimitta Gyan, that something is happening. You see, what a benediction for a king who is responsible for the prosperity of all of his citizens. He needs to have the ability to be incredibly broad-minded, not just to anticipate the difficulties in his life, but for all of his citizens, in the way that a parent must anticipate the difficulties of a child. A great king, and what to speak of Samrat Yudhishthira, who is not just the king of one small province, he is the king effectively of the whole planet. He has defeated everyone in Kurukshetra. He's done the Ashwamedha Yagya, he's done the Rajasuya Yagya. He is the king of the whole planet. He needs to have eyes and ears everywhere. Any mother will tell you, if they even have 2 or 3 kids under 5, you feel like you have to be 8-arm Vishnu, arms here, arms there, eyes everywhere. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, he has this training, so he is able to cater and take care of the needs of all of the kingdom. And so we can see, therefore, that nimitta, or in this case, they're known as dur-nimitta. Dur-nimitta means bad signs. Nimitta means positive signs, but dur-nimitta, like duratma, means a crooked soul. Dur-nimitta means bad signs. You are able, by identifying these dur-nimittas, to understand that there is a undesirable happening about to take place. This is very useful, both in an individual's life, in a devotee's life, and of course in a king's life. Many people may say, oh, is this not just superstition? You know, we have so many superstitions, well, we so-called superstitions, and I don't know because I haven't fully studied Nimitta Gyan, even though I do know some books, if devotees are interested, that we can't pass the salt. You can't pass a knife between each other. My wife in particular, don't pass a knife. I said, Mataji, this is just a butter knife. No, don't pass me the knife. Don't pass me the salt. Put it down and I'll pick it up. We have so many things which seem to be superstitious. English. Red sky at night, shepherd's delight. Red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. So red sky at night, shepherd's delight. It will be, if it's red at night as the sun is setting, then it won't rain the next day. But if on the following day it's still red in the sky as the sun is rising, this is the shepherd's warning. And actually, if you explore that so-called superstition, you will see that actually, if there's a red sky at night, that means the moisture in the air is being dissipated. But if it's red sky in the morning, that means that the moisture hasn't dissipated and it's likely to rain throughout the day. So many different things that we can see, just observation in the material nature. Often, if you go somewhere tropical, and it might be the case in Kenya, if it's very, very humid the day before, like very humid, you know that a lot of rain is going to come. Certainly in Florida, when Guru Maharaj was there, Ishara Swami was there in Florida. After very hot, and we knew the next day there'd be a lot of rain. So the Prakriti, the material nature, has certain laws. Now, the Nimitta Gyan is not superstitious. This is through the Gyan or the Vigyan of many great sages. They have identified the patterns of the material nature. And certain symptoms, just like an expert doctor, just by looking at a patient, he can see the symptoms and he will then be able to extrapolate the underlying cause. In the same way, this Gyan, these events which are happening are symptoms of an underlying ill cause, an underlying sickness, so to speak, of what's going to happen. So one could ask, okay, fine, but surely devotees just to depend on Krishna, everything will be okay. Absolutely. You must always, in every situation, you must depend on Krishna. You must have full surrender to Krishna. But if you're hungry and you come home, do you say, I'll depend on Krishna to fulfill my hunger? Okay, you may offer the preparation, but you still need to get the pan, get the oil, get the ingredients and cook. I think in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnava, only Srivas Thakur didn't have to do anything. He would go into one corner, he would clap his hands 3 times, and he said, I say to Krishna, if you do not fulfill my desire within 3 claps, I'll jump in the Ganga. And Mahaprabhu would observe it. He said, you are blessed. But apart from Srivas Thakur, if we go to the corner and clap 3 times and say we want our bellies filled, expect to remain hungry. I'll put it that way. Expect to remain hungry. No, there is a process. You must get the pan, you must cook, you must take active steps. In the same way, in life, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to become expert. Of course, we depend on Krishna in every single endeavor. But if Krishna himself is showing that there is a way, there is an educational system, there is a knowledge to become more expert in dealing in this material nature, more expert in the way that we can distribute this message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada, then why would we not? Actually, it's a mode of ignorance to say, I simply depend on Krishna, when Krishna is giving us practical steps. You know, there's often the example is, and there's a drowning man in the ocean, and he says, God, save me. Save me. I want to be saved by God. And then a boat sails by. They say, jump on. He says, no, I want to be saved by God. And then a helicopter comes past. You think, God, save me. And they drop the rope and come up. We'll save you. He says, no, I want to be saved by God. So the helicopter leaves. And then he's still saying, God, save me. And then he drowns. And then he sees God. He sees, and he said, God, I was calling out to you. I was depending on you. Why didn't you save me? He said, I sent the boat. He said, no, but I wanted you to save me. He said, I sent the helicopter. So no, I wanted you. So in the same way, Krishna has given us this jnana. He's given us these tools by which we can maneuver the material energy for his service. And from the great devotees of Krishna, from the time of Yudhishthira Maharaj and before, all the way until Srila Prabhupada, they would use these techniques, you know. So we should take advantage of this nimitta jnana, this vast body of knowledge that we have in order to make our offering more expert. So that is one benefit. And then at the same time, the benefit of something like nimitta jnana, actually, going back to that point, I wanted to quote something from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for those of you who don't know, is the guru of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's guru, but also his father. So we have Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was a great magistrate under the British government. In fact, the British held him in such high esteem that they built a railway line to his house in Navadvip. Because he said, look, I'm retiring, I'm going into bhajan. They said, no, you can't retire. We will build a railway line for you. So very expert person materially, but a deep and profound devotee of Krishna who actually he found Mayapur and Yogapeeth. But anyway, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said in his Chaitanya Shikshamrita, inasmuch as karma and gyan can make the body, mind, and environment favorable for bhakti, they can be accepted as means. Right? So I'll repeat that. Inasmuch as karma and gyan can make the body, mind, and environment favorable for bhakti, they can be accepted as otherwise in the scriptures as materialistic. And it's often said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur would say health, sadhana, and service. So if you can arrange your life, if you have techniques for arranging your life, which is conducive for Krishna consciousness, then do so. Srila Prabhupada also says in the purports of Bhagavad Gita 1865 or 66, arrange your life in such a way you're peaceful and that you can absorb yourself in your sadhana. Don't dismiss these techniques as material. Some of us, we have certain requirements. We have a certain tendency, fine. But do it in a way that Krishna sanctions. Don't do it in the way which the materialistic education are trying to tell us. So things like nimitta gyan, they can be very favorable for bhakti. But there's an additional benefit for nimitta gyan specifically. And that is actually when we start to recognize what ill omens are, practically we will see every time we walk out the door, especially in the age of Kali, there are so many ill omens. You just see the activities of people. And while, of course, you can navigate a course, navigate or chart a course in society, this will actually help us become akinchana gochara. Akinchana gochara. Akinchana gochara means actually all of our deep material desires, we think, oh, but if I just had, a bit more money, and if, I just got that hairstyle, and if I just got a new car, then I would be happier. When you realize that in this material world, there isn't actually anything worth enjoying, and the only way that you can be happy and successful in this world is by surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and unto the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you can become serious and you can become genuinely happy. And actually, we see in the next chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, Arjun goes through this very same process after seeing these omens. So in the next chapter, in first canto, 15th chapter, 27th verse, he says, now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. So after seeing all of these ill omens, Arjun comes to the realization that the only shelter for me is the instruction of Sri Krishna. So for Arjun specifically, that was the Bhagavad Gita, which he was given in Kurukshetra. For us, that can mean the Bhagavad Gita, it can mean the Bhagavad Puran, Srimad Bhagavatam, or any of the literatures given to us by our acharyas. So that is one of the benefits of nimitta gyan. Not only can it help us negotiate the material world, it can help us realize that actually the only shelter isn't any materials construct, it is the instruction of the Supreme Lord. So just before we've got until 7 o'clock, Mataji, is that correct?
Yes, Prabhuji. 7 o'clock in the UK.
So what I'll do is 9 o'clock your time. So I'll wrap up in 2 minutes and then I'll open up the floor for a couple of questions, or however many questions the devotees have. So I thought it might be useful to explore actually the different categories of this nimitta gyan. Nimitta again means sign and gyan means understanding. So there are actually 8 categories of omens. And we can see quite a few of those omens which are given here within this little passage between 12 and 19. So the first category is known as Bhoma or Bhuva, and that means omens from earthly events. Then Utpata, which means unusual calamitous events. So for example, there was a comet. And then Ulkapata, unusual planetary events. Swapana, which is in dreams. Anga, throbbing of different parts of the body. Often you'll see, I think they even say that in text 11, actually, the verse just before, the thighs and the quivering of Yudhishthira Maharaj, whose body is going on. Then there's Vyanjana, marks on the body. Lakshana, features of the body. And then Svarodaya, which is notes of breathing. So even again in text 11, Yudhishthira Maharaj is having heart palpitations. And then we see in text 12, the dog is barking at Bhima. The cows are passing on the left side. You know, there's shrieks of the owl, which again is Bhoma. We see the smoke encircling the sky. That's Utpata. The wind is blowing violently. Again, Utpata. The rays of the sun are declining and the stars are fighting amongst themselves. Ulkapata, that's the planetary events. Rivers, tributaries, ponds are all perturbed. Butter no longer ignites, so ghee is no longer ignites. This is calamitous event, Utpata. And then again, we come to our verse. The calves do not suck the teats of the cows, nor do the cows give milk. They are standing, crying, tears in their eyes, and bulls take no pleasure in the pasturing ground. So again, you could say this is Bhoma or Utpata. So these 8 categories, this is all available. I would recommend for people who want to read more about this topic, there is a book called Nimitta Gyan by Bharat Chandra Prabhu. So to recap, the first canto is incredibly important, as confirmed by Srila Jiva Goswami and the Padma Puran. It is the feet, is one of the feet of the Supreme Lord and should be treated as such. This chapter specifically is very important as it covers the topic of Ashraya, the 10th and all-encompassing topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And specifically because it creates that Vipralamba is denoted within this passage, especially on text 19. And it is one of the 64 arts of traditional education, which is known as Chatu Shashti Kala. And in going deep into these arts, even though seemingly materialistic, they can make devotees more expert in dealing with the material nature, but they can also help us take shelter, make us akinchana gochara, detach from the material nature, and ultimately take greater shelter of the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments, corrections?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for this excellent class. But before we go on to questions, I'd like to introduce you. I wanted all the devotees to join in, so because you have joined this Sangha for the first time, I'd like to introduce our mentors as well in the group that have joined in today. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce you to the group. So Prabhuji comes from a devotee family. He's the son of Udayananda Prabhu and Jamuna Priya Devi Dasi. Prabhuji studied at King's College in London, and he did his postgraduate in finance, in London. And it was during college that Prabhuji also, with his dear friend and recently departed Jankinath Prabhu, started the UK's first BASC for students who were aspiring devotees to live together while they were students. They hosted programs for boys with speakers such as His Holiness Jayadeva Swami, His Holiness Kavichandra Swami, and His Grace Gauranga Prabhu. During this period, His Grace Shruti Dharma Prabhu requested that Krishna Arjuna Das be the personal assistant of His Grace Gaur Gopal Prabhu and His Grace Shishtashtakam Prabhu during their first visit to the UK. So after spending time in the ashram in ISKCON Vrindavan under His Grace Ayendra Prabhu and ISKCON Chopati, Prabhu traveled to Ujjain in 2010, and we are seeing a lot of Ujjain in his session today. He took shelter of His Highness Bhakti Charu Swami Guru Maharaj. He became the traveling secretary of Guru Maharaj during 2011, during which time he was blessed with Diksha at his father's home in California. In 2012, he changed his service as traveling secretary to attend to his ailing health of his grandfather. Thereafter, Guru Maharaj instructed Krishna Arjun Das to focus his efforts on building Krishna conscious communities. Prabhuji was also present during Guru Maharaj's Antya Leela in Orlando during the pandemic, and he alone traveled the whole journey with Guru Maharaj Swapu from Orlando to Sridham Mayapur in 2020. So Prabhuji gives a lot of classes and is a member of the Samadhi committee of His Highness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. So we are really, really grateful to have his time and also his association. Prabhuji, thank you very much for coming to this class. We have among us our mentors. So if possible, they can switch on their videos. If possible, they are all in Kenya. Some of them are in Kenya, so we might have challenges. It's the rainy season and I can hear the rains behind me. So we have Mansi Ganga Mataji, who knows your parents, Prabhuji.
Wow.
And she was at the manor decades ago. And we have Path Prabhu, who is leading the Eldoret, who's the president of the Eldoret Center. We have among us Vidur Prabhu, who has joined us from Birmingham. We have Arya Govind Prabhu, who has joined us from Nakuru. And we also have Ananda Vrindavan Prabhu from the UK, who is our mentor as well. So to name a few of our mentors, and this is a serious group that meets every day. I mean, we also meet on weekends. So it's a dynamic group, so the numbers fluctuate, but I think this is a good group, Prabhuji, and we will benefit from your association. Hare Krishna.
I feel very embarrassed speaking in front of so many senior devotees. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and learn, and please correct me wherever needed. Bless me that I can say something of use in the weeks and months moving forward. So Hare Krishna to all the devotees.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. And we open it to question and answer session. Hare Krishna, are there any questions or comments? Yes, Arya Govind Prabhu, kindly unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhu. Very enlightening. And then just wanted to ask, as devotees, what do we do if we face any kind of bad omens? Like, let's say, coincidentally, a cat passed me in front of my car when I was leaving the house. So what do we do as devotees? Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. That's a good question. And it's a very simple, and some would say obvious answer. But the holy name, Golokera Premadhana Harinam Sankirtana. You see, if Krishna is present, what is the question of any inauspiciousness? What is the motto of Back to Godhead? What is it? Nescience is darkness, Godhead is light. Wherever there is Godhead, there cannot be darkness. Something to that effect. But ultimately, if we realize that the holy name is non-different from Swayam Bhagwan Sakshat Hari, what can be the question of inauspiciousness when the Lord is there? And the holy name is not some poor substitute. The holy name is not some imitation of the Lord. It's not some tokenism for the misguided. Actually, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving the highest benediction, the highest benediction. Even if you read Nectar of Instruction, it is a benediction which even Srila Vyasadeva does not have, right? It says that towards the end of Nectar of Instruction, Vyasadeva cannot even understand the glories of the holy name and of Radha Kund. It's actually been given to the least fortunate Kali Yuga Manav. So yes, when you walk out the door, there will be cats. There will be so many inauspicious. In fact, in Kenya, you're probably a bit insulated. If I walk on the streets of London now, there is so many inauspicious things. Absolutely. But the number one thing you can do is take shelter of the holy name of the Lord. And actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, to speak of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he actually says in Harinam Chintamani that within 2.5 years of sincere chanting, you should be chanting Shuddhanam. Shuddhanam means pure name, means the Lord is there dancing on your day. It doesn't mean Chayanam, not a reflection. Actual Krishna is there when you chant. So that is the way. All auspiciousness is available through this Harinam Sankirtan. I hope that answers your question, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Hare Govind Prabhu. Are there any other questions or comments? And on the same, Prabhuji, maybe can we take this as a chance to remember Krishna more and chant his name? So the moment we see inauspiciousness, you think of Krishna, or you think of his name, and you start chanting more. So maybe it would be a good opportunity as well. I don't mean to say that we should have all the inauspicious around us all the time, but when such things happen, it's a good time to chant and to remember Krishna. I don't know about others.
Absolutely. And I guess
Yes, Prabhuji.
Sorry, Mataji, have you finished?
I have finished, Prabhuji. Yes.
Actually, so as a practical consideration, yes, I guess the holy name is a catch-all. And of course, when we see the inauspicious activities, we should be able to, like I said, a kinchana godram, digest that there isn't so much nectar or rust or promise in this world, like we may believe as conditioned souls. But I should also add that if we go deeper into the science, so for example, there is one conversation with Srila Prabhupada, with Jayapataka Maharaj and His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami. It's 1976 morning walk in Mayapur. And then Srila Prabhupada is also looking at omens, and it starts raining. And Jayapataka Maharaj and Tamal Krishna Maharaj are lamenting. Jayapataka Maharaj is lamenting that, oh, it's going to spoil the crops. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj is lamenting it's going to stop construction of the buildings in Mayapur. But Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse, and it stuck with me actually. Yadi varshe maghera shesha, dhanya raja punya desha. So yadi varshe means like barsat, like rain. Yadi varshe maghera shesha. Magh, the month of Magh is Jan and Feb. Dhanya raja punya desha. Dhanya means like fortunate, wealth. Dhanya raja punya desha. And that desha, the country, is punya. So Srila Prabhupada looks at it in a different way, that actually if there is rain in Feb, it can mean that the king of that place is bringing great auspiciousness. Now, I lived in India for 4 years, and without straying into politics, 4 or 5 years. Every Feb, after Modi came in, there would always be a smattering of rain. And I would always think of that verse, and also what Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Chara Maharaj said, about if Modi came in, he would create an environment which was more conducive for spiritual life. So yes, it can make us depend on Krishna more, but it can also give us encouragement that there are greater opportunities to preach Krishna consciousness. It can make us perturbed about some things and cautious, but it can also give us encouragement to say, actually, now is the time right for preaching. So to the degree that we have a grasp of this kind of science, it can be a tool for both of those activities. Both, of course, always to depend on Krishna more, but also to read and gauge the current climate and be able to engage with it accordingly.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for that wonderful explanation. I know we have exhausted our time, but are there any burning questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, can I
Yes,
kind of comment on this weather thing?
Yes,
Kritika was there at the Nakuru opening center, and you saw we put a tent up because we expected the rain, and the prediction for the rain was from 8 in the morning continuous. So I thought, okay, great. That's going to really help the situation, you know. And all I did was I said, Krishna, I would tell everyone, Krishna can do anything. Krishna can do anything. And you saw how it was. It was pleasant. It only rained around 12:30, just for about 7, 8. And then it was dry again. And Krishna, even the weather, he can change for you. I just don't know why I kept telling her, Krishna can do anything. Krishna can do anything. And he did it to show. And just reminds me, Arjuna, Krishna, his mother, as he knows I knew the mother as a teenager. When I first came to ISKCON Rath Yatra in UK in 1982 or 81, I'm not sure. And Arjun knows how it rains in UK. And the girl I was sharing a flat with, she told me, you're going to have a chariot festival on the streets of London and with this kind of weather. So I told myself, if this Krishna is really true, he can stop the rain. And that was my conviction. There was no rain. I said, see, I knew this Krishna is real, you know. So that was my conviction that I'm challenging Krishna, that if it rains, that means you don't exist. But if it doesn't rain, you exist. And he proved it to me, he exists. Until date, I have that faith. Even with rain, even in Nairobi, we've seen, there was a drought, we did 12-hour kirtan. The minute we stopped kirtan, it started pouring down. So with rain, I have a lot of experiences, you know. Hare Krishna. Nice seeing you, Arjun.
Very
Prabhu.
nice to see you too, Mataji. Thank you so much. And I think actually to add to that, there was a time when there was a severe drought in Fiji. And I think Kamal Krishna Goswami took all of the devotees and they did continuous Harinam for 3 or 4 days around the whole island. And then the rain came also. So there are so many wonderful pastimes. Thank you for sharing that, Mataji.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Mataji has really got Krishna's blessings, and whatever she desires comes true. And we are very lucky to have her association, all the devotees on this group. Any other questions or comments before we close for today? If there are no more questions or comments, can I request Parth Prabhu, Hare Krishna Prabhu, are you able to switch on your video and close this session for today?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mother. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. You have a very nice class about the introduction of the Bhagavatam and how the narration about the quote of the Padma Purana, how they glorified this one. All the Puranas also glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is because this is the last creation of Vyasadeva with the literary incarnation of Lord Krishna. It is very nice. You are giving the basic steps and the importance of reading Bhagavatam. It's very nice, Prabhu. And also talking about the auspiciousness and inauspiciousness. This is not too much importance of the devotee lives. Because like you told, Krishna Surya Samaya hai Andhakar. Where there is Krishna, there is no darkness. So there is everything is auspicious. So thank you very much for your nice class. Also thanks very much for you present here. Today is your first class. We are doing every day. Already Kritika Mataji told you. This session is going every day without any break. So we hope more and more your association in the coming weeks. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I request all the devotees, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra for glorification of His grace, Krishna Arjun Prabhuji. Please join. Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Pancha
Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishvebhyo
Namo Namah.
Jai.
Grace Krishna Arjun Prabhuji.
Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Yeah.
jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for an excellent class, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.